Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. This is News and Views right here on Salam Media, and another very important interview this morning. And that has to do, obviously, with Cyril Ramaphosa announcing a raft of new emergency measures to deal with South Africa's electricity crisis. And not a moment too soon. This should have happened a couple of years ago, and we wouldn't have found ourselves in the situation that we found ourselves now. Lots and lots of businesses have closed down, and this situation has created massive unemployment in the country. So let's hope and pray that this 10-point power crisis plan is going to get us back onto our feet. And to talk to us about the 10-point power crisis plan, does it make sense? Is it going to get us to our feet sooner rather than later? Is it going to revive the country's economy? Is none other than a former chief nuclear officer at Eskom, David Nicholls. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program, and hoping you're going to throw light on the subject. Excuse the pun.
Well, thank you. It's interesting that the president came out and said these things yesterday. I'm not quite as positive as some people are about it. And if I may, I'll go through a couple of the issues that he's raised and put on the table and see where they fit in the rest of the world, because there is a power crisis now.
You've just deflated my very good mood for the morning.
I'm
Yes,
sorry, Julie.
over to you. Was he being too optimistic, David? Are you kind of thinking it's not doable? What exactly is the situation? Over to you to unpack, please.
Okay, I'll try and be really quick. Just a couple of the basic is done. The important thing is to put the pressure on Eskom to fix its current coal fleet, to make them get them back available, because that's the short-term issue. So that's the one which is absolutely supportable, and we must do that and put all the pressure we can, all support we can for Eskom to get its coal fleet back into a sensible level of availability. Not world class, just into the middle of the range.
But we also understand there's sabotage involved there as well, that they're not getting pure coal. They're getting a lot of rubble mixed in with the coal, and things like that. Do you buy that?
Not completely. To me, there is, as I say, sabotage. So there's sort of three things going on in sabotage spends. One is the actual thing where there is a little man with a limpet mine trying to destroy your plant, and is an externally controlled classical wartime sabotage. I don't really think we're seeing that. The last time we saw that sensibly, I think, was probably at Coburg in '82, when Coburg was blown up by the ANC in construction. The second one is, the rest of it is just basically, if the morale in the organization is not there, people stop worrying about doing their job properly. And that, I think, is what we're seeing in the sabotage area. There is clearly some area of sabotage, but the only ones I've actually heard of that are actually, in my view, somebody deliberately going out is an issue of one of the power stations where they cut some cables that took 8 hours to find, and that cutting down of the pylons going into Letabo, 6 months ago. So I don't think that the sabotage is an issue, but it's an issue of the leadership and the morale in the organization. So that's my comment generally. If the morale was good in Eskom, I don't think you'd be having these problems. You might have a few, but they aren't germane. So I don't think sabotage is. I think the issue in Eskom is largely one of getting the discipline and the morale going up, and people believing in what they're doing. And I think a lot of Eskom management is now just going through the motions because they don't believe they're appreciated. They don't believe that their hard work is recognized. I can't speak with. I've been out of Eskom now for 3-4 years, so I can't speak with vast evidence on that lot. Mm-hmm. But of the things that was announced, the getting of Eskom going is, to me, the fundamental issue. I'm slightly concerned that some of the other ones are being over optimistic. Let me put an example of that. The famous 100 megawatt cap on private companies building power stations to feed their own customers. Note, their own customers. It was originally 1 megawatt was license free, then it became 10, then it became 100. It's now infinite. But there's been no great take up of the 100 megawatt option, which is still a very large amount of power by any normal means. And the problem with that is that even at an unlimited capacity, you've got to find your customers for your power, sort out the wheeling cost through Eskom or through the grid system to your customer, and sort out who's taking all the risks and who is providing the backup power for when your plant is not available. Those issues haven't been solved yet. They're not policy issues in the sense that they're straightforward commercial problems, but in reality, they weren't solved in the 98 energy policy, and they haven't been solved now, in my view. So I'm not sure that's going to make much difference. The feed-in
Okay,
tariff.
let me do this, David. Let me just go through it point by point, and you can respond to it. The first one being that Eskom will start buying electricity from existing independent power producers. Your thoughts?
That's great. They're on the thing already. There is some power there. The problem with that is that most of those are coming on as solar, and therefore most of them are not when we need the power. We've seen the problem of the last week of load shedding, when the load shedding was in the evening, because that's when peak occurs. And clearly at that point, PV was not helping anybody. But yes, absolutely. Eskom's you buying power from whoever it can in the short term. No question.
But can't you store that solar energy that you've harvested during the day, with your sunlight being at its maximum?
Well, that, of course, is the fundamental one. You're going to come to it in a second with batteries and more PV and more feed-in tariff. That is one of the key issues, and nobody's yet got storage at a reasonably competitive level. There's talk of for example, there's talk in the National Planning Commission's recommendations of a 5,000 megawatt battery, which sounds really exciting, but that would be about half of the entire world battery storage as it stands now.
Okay.
And it's going to be about 150 billion rand to buy it.
Ooh, okay. This one's got me a bit puzzled. Eskom will import power from Botswana and Zambia. I thought we were supplying power to them. What's going on here?
No, there is trade across the border in terms of power. So we provide power to neighbouring states, and they went. And it's a trading pool. So if there's scope for getting more power from our neighbouring states, we should certainly be buying it. I just do not know where we stand with the availability of that power, but certainly if there's power available from Botswana and Zambia, we should be trying to get it in as fast as we can. We already import about 1,300 megawatts from Cahora Bassa, which is a dam in Mozambique. Right. So that's good. I think the issues of taking more power from existing sources is to me almost a no-brainer, and I'm not quite sure why we need a sort of a speech to make that happen, if that makes sense.
Okay. Does that also include buying power from private generators, existing private generators like mines, paper mills, shopping centers, and other private entities? And would that have been the response you gave me to my first question?
Yes, you should buy power from wherever you can get the spare power, as long as the power is useful to you at the time. So in other words, the price of the power is a fundamental issue. So let me give you an example. In the middle of the day, if you've got available power because there's PV on the system and we're not seeing this demand isn't stretched, what Eskom is saving by buying that power is the cost of the coal in the coal station. So that's about 50 cents, shall we say, a unit. At the evening peak, when Eskom's having to run gas turbines, the price of that kilowatt hour to Eskom, or the value, is probably about 4 to 5 rand. And that's one thing that's quite important, is the time value of power. So we want power 24/7.
Yeah, clearly, I speak as a layperson here, but clearly what we need to be doing is to find a way to store the power during the day and release it and make it available in the evening hours when needed most, still at that affordable price. So that's the big question, and that's the big challenge, isn't it?
That is the challenge. And the discussion of batteries is very interesting. It's quite fashionable. But the IRP 2019, which did projections going in the future, said that neither batteries nor pump storage were commercially viable for the South African system. And it's worth bearing in mind, in terms of stored energy, pump storage is like Ngula, the power station Eskom just finished building, is about a quarter of the cost per kilowatt hour stored of a battery. So batteries are quite expensive. And no
Okay.
one's yet got that price down. I always find it's worth mentioning that if you look at the price of batteries, you'll find in simple storage costs, lead acid batteries, like your motor car's got in it, is still the cheapest or very close to the cheapest kind of battery around. And lead acid batteries were invented in 1859. So we've
Sure.
understood battery economics for an awful long time. We haven't got them down to the point where they are. And we need to have literally a reduction by a factor of something like 5 or 6, a factor of, to make them viable as a purely commercial activity in the grid system.
So we need great minds like yourself, nuclear officer, ex chief nuclear officer at ISCOM, to put. Obviously, we need minds like yours to come together to come up with these type of solutions, and I hope that it is in the pipeline. But that being said, I'm kind of wondering about subsidies, because what the president also said is that business and households will be encouraged to install rooftop solar to connect to this grid, but it comes at a huge cost. It's only really the very rich that will be able to go the solar route. It's almost unaffordable to the working classes. We know that the government has put in projects like, if you drive past Alexander Township here in Johannesburg, they've got solar panels on their roofs, but that was subsidized by the government or given to them by the government. Where do we stand on this issue?
Okay, two comments. First of all, the ones in Alex when you drive past on the motorway are actually water heaters, which are a really good idea. So we should encourage water heaters because that includes storage by definition. You heat your water, the energy stays in the water in your geyser. The trouble with feed-in tariffs, and most of the world is going away from these, is that you tend to then make the problem in some cases even worse, not better, because you are providing power at cost to Eskom when the sun is shining, when there is currently less of a shortage, and you are not doing anything for the evening peak, and in many cases the morning peak when the peak demand is there. Storage remains the problem. But essentially, the feed-in tariff option is very exciting, and I must be honest, you're quite right. I'm saying if, depending on the price for feed-in tariff, I may be putting solar on my roof because it makes it much more economic. But it won't help the system at the evening when you want that power to cook your supper and heat the house up. So yeah, it's an
Okay.
issue. I think the key question I put in the whole comment is a lot of the president's speech is really good, positive ideas that they've all got some weaknesses, life has, but the economics and the actual implementation of it is going to be the problem. As in many of these things, God's in good intention and the devil is in
Absolutely.
detail.
Absolutely. And so many more questions to put to you this morning, but we have run out of time. Maybe this is something we need to pick up at another time and unpack in greater detail. David Nicholls, thank you indeed for your time, and take it easy. God bless, and just save as much energy as you possibly can in your part of the world. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you indeed.
It is exactly 8:51 a.m. News and views right here on Salam Media. In a minute or two, we'll be joined by Hafiz Hussein Chunara regarding their project, which is rolling out in Uganda. So please stay with us.